The Zelkin fleet hung in the darkness of space like a collection of deadly jewels, their bioluminescent hulls pulsing with an eerie blue light. Admiral Thexvar studied the tactical display with his 4 eyes, each one focused on a different aspect of the data streaming across the holographic interface. His scaled fingers drummed against the command chair as he reviewed the intelligence reports for the 3rd time. "This cannot be correct," he hissed, his serpentine tongue flicking out to taste the recycled air of the bridge. A single planet? Defended by what appears to be primitive kinetic weapons and basic energy shields? Commander Yilkin, his second-in-command, approached with measured steps. Her own scales rippled with nervous energy as she consulted her datapad. "The reconnaissance drones confirm it, Admiral. The 3rd planet from their star shows signs of a recently unified civilization. They call themselves humans and their world Earth. Our analysis suggests they've only achieved basic faster-than-light communication within the last 50 rotations." Thexvar's laugh was a sound like grinding metal. The Zelkin hegemony had been expanding across this spiral arm of the galaxy for over 3,000 years, conquering hundreds of worlds and absorbing dozens of species into their empire. Each victory had been easier than the last, as their technology and tactics improved while their enemies remained primitive and divided. 50 rotations, he repeated, savoring the words. "We've been traveling between stars for longer than their entire recorded history. What resistance could they possibly offer?" The bridge crew exchanged glances filled with anticipation. Everyone knew what finding such an easy target meant. Minimal casualties, maximum resource acquisition, and substantial promotion opportunities for all involved. Earth would be added to the hegemony's collection, like a ripe fruit falling from a tree. "Show me their defensive capabilities," Thexvar commanded. The main display shifted to show orbital scans of Earth. The planet was beautiful, Thexvar had to admit, with swirling white clouds over blue oceans and green-brown landmasses. But beauty meant nothing in conquest. What mattered were the defensive installations, and they were laughably inadequate. Primitive orbital platforms, Yilkin reported. Basic missile arrays, simple laser batteries, and what appears to be their most advanced technology. Magnetic acceleration weapons. Nothing that could penetrate our shields, nothing that could threaten our fleet. Thexvar nodded approvingly. The Zelkin fleet consisted of 47 capital ships, each one capable of reducing a planetary surface to molten slag. Their shields could deflect anything short of antimatter weaponry, and their own weapon systems could punch through any known defensive barrier. This would be a massacre. "What about their population centers?" the Admiral asked. "Scattered across the planetary surface in clusters they call cities," Yilkin replied. "Largest concentration appears to be approximately 8 million individuals. Total planetary population estimated at just over 7 billion. No significant subterranean installations detected. The numbers were staggering in their implications. 7 billion beings to be processed, sorted, and integrated into the hegemony's workforce. The planet's resources would fuel Zelkin expansion for decades to come. And all of it defended by weapons that wouldn't have been impressive 3 centuries ago. "Admiral," interrupted Navigation Officer Kextal from his station. "We're receiving a transmission from the target world." "Already?" Thexvar was surprised. Most primitive civilizations didn't detect their approach until the fleet was already in orbit. "Put it through." The display flickered and resolved into the image of a human face. The creature was bipedal, as intelligence had indicated, with pale skin and strange fur covering only the top of its head. Its small eyes were focused and alert, showing an intelligence that Thexvar found mildly interesting. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said in accented galactic standard. "You have entered sovereign Earth space without permission. State your intentions or withdraw immediately." The bridge fell silent for a moment before erupting in laughter. The sound echoed off the biometal walls like the chittering of insects. Thexvar himself was so amused that his scales shifted to a lighter shade of blue, a sign of intense entertainment among his species. "United Earth Defense Force," he repeated, emphasizing each word. "How delightfully quaint. I am Admiral Thexvar of the Zelkin hegemony's 5th Conquest Fleet. Your world has been selected for integration into our empire. Surrender immediately and your deaths will be quick." The human's expression didn't change. No fear, no panic, no desperate pleading. Thexvar found this curious. Most species showed some emotional response when faced with inevitable conquest. Perhaps humans were simply too primitive to understand their situation. I see, Admiral Chen said calmly. In that case, we respectfully decline your generous offer. Earth will defend itself. With what? Thexvar couldn't contain his amusement. Your projectile weapons? Your chemical explosives? Do you have any idea what you're facing? We have some idea, Chen replied. More than you might think. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in silence. Thexvar stared at the blank display for a moment, then shrugged his massive shoulders. Bravado was common among primitive species. It made no difference to the outcome. Begin the approach, he commanded. Standard conquest formation. Shields at maximum, weapons charged. We'll give them one final chance to surrender before we demonstrate the futility of resistance. As the Zelkan fleet moved toward Earth, their long-range sensors began picking up increased activity from the planet's surface. Energy signatures were spiking across multiple continents, and what appeared to be additional defensive platforms were coming online. Curious, Yilkin observed. They seem to be activating hidden systems. Perhaps they're not as primitive as we thought. Thexvar dismissed the concern with a wave of his clawed hand. Hidden weapons, secret technologies, ancient artifacts, we've heard it all before. Every species thinks they have some special advantage that will save them. It never does. The fleet continued its inexorable advance toward Earth, confident in their overwhelming superiority. The humans might have a few surprises, but nothing could stand against the might of the Zelkan hegemony. Within a few standard hours, Earth would be theirs, and its population would learn the meaning of conquest. None of them noticed the small, almost invisible objects that had detached from Earth's moon and were now drifting silently through space on intercept courses with their fleet. None of them detected the quantum communications bursts that were traveling faster than light to distant points throughout the solar system, and none of them suspected that they were flying into the most sophisticated trap that any military force in the galaxy had ever constructed. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Rodriguez adjusted his tactical display one final time before sealing his helmet. Around him in the cramped confines of the stealth insertion pod, 11 other members of Earth's most elite military unit made their final preparations. The 7th Special Operations Group didn't officially exist in any military database, and their current mission was so classified that even they hadn't known the full details until 6 hours ago. Sound off, Rodriguez commanded through the comm system. Sergeant Williams, demolition specialist ready, came the first response. Corporal Zhang, electronic warfare ready. Private Johnson, sniper ready. One by one, each member of the team confirmed their readiness. They were the best of the best, selected from every branch of Earth's military and trained in techniques that pushed the boundaries of human capability. Enhanced reflexes, improved strength, accelerated healing. They represented the pinnacle of human military evolution. Mission brief one final time, Rodriguez said, as their pod continued its silent approach toward the Zelkan fleet. Intelligence indicates that the alien fleet operates on a hierarchical command structure. Take out their flagship, and the rest of the fleet becomes disorganized and vulnerable. Our job is to infiltrate their command vessel, eliminate their leadership, and create enough chaos to give our home fleet the advantage they need. The plan was insane, Rodriguez had to admit. 12 humans against a ship that probably contained thousands of alien warriors. But insane plans were what special forces did best, and Earth's survival depended on their success. ETA to target, 90 seconds, announced their pilot through the comm. The insertion pod was a marvel of human engineering, designed to be nearly invisible to sensors while carrying a full team into hostile territory. Its adaptive camouflage system could mimic the appearance of space debris, and its engines produced no detectable energy signature. Rodriguez watched the tactical display as they approached the massive alien flagship. The vessel was enormous, easily 3 kilometers long and bristling with weapon systems that could reduce Earth's cities to ash. But its very size would work in their favor. Large ships had large blind spots, and special forces teams were experts at exploiting weaknesses. Remember, Rodriguez said, these aliens have been conquering primitive worlds for centuries. They're not used to facing an enemy that fights back with intelligence and skill. Use that arrogance against them. The pod shuddered slightly as it attached to the hull of the Zelkan flagship. Within seconds, Sergeant Williams had deployed her molecular cutter, slicing through the alien metal like it was paper. The breach sealed itself automatically as they entered, maintaining atmosphere while preventing detection. They found themselves in what appeared to be a storage compartment filled with strange, organic-looking containers. The air was thick and humid, with a chemical tang that made their environmental suits work overtime. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across the bulkheads, and the constant vibration of the ship's engines provided cover for their movements. Corporal Zhang, "Get me a layout of the ship," Rodriguez ordered. Zhang deployed her quantum scanner, a device that could map internal structures by analyzing subatomic particle flows. Within minutes, she had a three-dimensional representation of the entire vessel floating in their shared tactical display. "Command center is 12 levels up and approximately 2 kilometers forward," she reported. "Multiple routes available, but I'm detecting heavy security around the central core." "What kind of security?" Rodriguez asked. "Both automated and biological. Looks like they have patrol units moving through the corridors, plus some kind of AI monitoring system. But Rodriguez, there's something else. I'm picking up some unusual energy signatures from the command level." Rodriguez studied the data flowing across his display. The energy patterns were unlike anything in Earth's databases, but they seemed to be concentrated around what Zhang had identified as the bridge area. Could be their primary weapons control, he mused. Or maybe their faster-than-light communication system. Either way, it's probably important. The team moved through the alien ship like ghosts, using techniques perfected in conflicts across Earth. They avoided main corridors, used maintenance shafts when possible, and eliminated the few alien sentries they encountered with silent efficiency. The Zelkins were impressive physical specimens, Rodriguez noted, but they relied too heavily on technology and not enough on situational awareness. "Contact ahead," whispered Private Johnson from her position at point. 3 guards, standard patrol pattern." Rodriguez moved up to observe. The alien guards were massive, easily 8 feet tall with muscular builds and natural armor plating. They carried energy weapons that looked capable of punching holes through tank armor, but they were walking in a predictable pattern, talking among themselves, and completely unaware that death was stalking them through their own ship. "Take them," Rodriguez ordered. The attack was swift and silent. Johnson's sniper rifle, modified with a sonic suppressor, eliminated the first guard before he could react. Williams lobbed a micro-grenade that disrupted the second guard's nervous system, dropping him instantly. The third guard managed to turn around before Corporal Martinez's monomolecular blade severed his spinal cord. "Drag them into the maintenance alcove," Rodriguez commanded. "We can't afford to have them discovered." As they continued their advance toward the command center, Rodriguez couldn't help but be impressed by the alien technology surrounding them. The ship's corridors were works of art, with flowing organic curves and integrated lighting systems that seemed to pulse with life. The aliens clearly had mastery over biotechnology that humans were only beginning to understand. But technology wasn't everything. Rodriguez had learned that lesson in conflicts across Earth, where advanced armies had been defeated by determined opponents who understood that warfare was ultimately about will, intelligence, and adaptability. The Zelkins might have superior weapons and shields, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity's special forces. "Colonel," Zhang's voice was tense through the comm. "I'm detecting increased activity throughout the ship. Multiple patrol units converging on the lower levels. Did they find the guards we eliminated?" "Negative. This looks like a general alert. Something's happening outside." Rodriguez switched to the tactical channel that connected them to Earth's command center. The signal was weak this deep inside the alien ship, but he could make out fragments of Admiral Chen's voice. "Earth fleet engaging. Casualties mounting. Need more time?" The message was clear enough. The space battle had begun, and Earth's forces were struggling against the alien fleet. The mission had just become even more critical. "Double time," Rodriguez ordered his team. "We need to reach that command center now." They abandoned stealth for speed, racing through the alien corridors as emergency lights began flashing throughout the ship. The Zelkins were clearly responding to the external threat, which meant fewer guards between the Special Forces team and their target. "Command level," Zhang announced as they reached a massive blast door marked with alien symbols. "Bridge should be just beyond this barrier." Rodriguez studied the door's locking mechanism. It was sophisticated, but every lock could be defeated if you understood its principles. More importantly, every door was also a potential weapon if you knew how to use it properly. "Williams, can you turn this door into a bomb?" The demolitions expert grinned behind her helmet. "Colonel, I can turn anything into a bomb if you give me 5 minutes and some creative thinking." As Williams worked on her modifications, Rodriguez reviewed their situation. 12 humans were about to assault the command center of an alien warship, surrounded by thousands of enemies and with no possibility of retreat. By any rational analysis, they were all about to die, but rationality had never been the point. The point was to give Earth a fighting chance, and sometimes that required making choices that looked impossible from the outside. Special forces existed to do the impossible, and today they would prove that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their absolute refusal to surrender. Admiral Thexvar's confidence began to waver as the first reports reached his command center. 3 of his outer escort vessels had simply vanished from sensors, their last transmissions cut off mid-word. The humans had claimed they would defend themselves, but this was far beyond anything the Zelkan intelligence reports had suggested possible. "Status report," he demanded, his scales shifting to a darker blue that indicated rising stress levels. "Unknown weapons platforms have engaged the outer perimeter," Commander Yilkin reported, her own voice tight with disbelief. "The attacks appear to be coming from multiple vectors, but our sensors cannot locate the source. Whatever they're using, it's unlike any technology in our databases." The main display showed the Zelkan fleet spread across several million cubic kilometers of space, their standard conquest formation designed to overwhelm planetary defenses through sheer firepower. But the formation that had conquered 100 worlds was now working against them, as invisible enemies picked off isolated vessels with surgical precision. "How is this possible?" Thexvar growled. "Show me the attack patterns." The tactical display shifted to show the engagement zones. Each destroyed Zelkan vessel had been hit by what appeared to be focused antimatter beams, but the energy signatures were wrong. Antimatter weapons left distinctive traces, and these attacks showed none of the expected radiation patterns. "Admiral," interrupted sensor specialist Krilvan from his station, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the Earth system. Whatever they're preparing, it's operating on a scale we didn't think they possessed." Thexvar studied the new data with growing alarm. Energy signatures were appearing near Earth's moon, around several of the outer planets, and even from what appeared to be empty space. The humans hadn't just hidden their defensive capabilities, they had created an entire network of weapons platforms throughout their solar system. "This intelligence was completely wrong," Yilkin whispered. "The humans aren't primitive at all. They've been hiding their true capabilities." Before Thexvar could respond, proximity alarms began screaming throughout the bridge. The flagship's defensive systems had detected incoming projectiles, but the sensor readings made no sense. The objects were moving at nearly 10% of light speed, too fast for conventional missiles but too slow for energy weapons. "Evasive maneuvers," Thexvar commanded. The massive flagship began to turn, its emergency thrusters firing at maximum capacity. But the incoming projectiles adjusted their courses with impossible precision, tracking the ship's movements like living things. When they struck the shields, the results were devastating. "Shield generators offline," reported the engineering station. Whatever those projectiles were, they passed right through our barriers like they weren't there. Thexvar felt a chill run through his blood. Zelkan shields were based on principles that had been perfected over millennia of warfare. They could deflect energy weapons, absorb kinetic impacts, and even withstand limited antimatter attacks. Nothing should have been able to penetrate them so easily. "Damage report," he ordered. "Hull breaches on decks 12 through 15, came the response. "Casualties mounting." "But Admiral, the projectiles didn't explode. They just stopped. They're embedded in our hull. And I'm reading some kind of energy signature from each impact point." Before anyone could analyze what that meant, the ship's internal security system activated. Emergency lights bathed the bridge in pulsing red illumination as automated defenses throughout the vessel came online. "Intruder alert," announced the ship's AI in its cold synthetic voice. "Unauthorized life forms detected on multiple decks. Security teams respond immediately." Thexvar's 4 eyes widened in shock. "Intruders? How could there be intruders?" His ship was in the middle of space, surrounded by his own fleet, with no enemy vessels close enough to launch boarding parties. "Impossible," he hissed. "There must be some mistake." But the security reports continued streaming in, each one more alarming than the last. Guard posts were going silent throughout the ship, and the intruders were moving toward the command center with determination that suggested they knew exactly where they were going. How many? Thexvar demanded. Unclear, the security chief reported. Early estimates suggested dozens of boarders, but we're only finding evidence of a small team. They're moving through the ship like they've studied our internal layout. The admiral's mind raced. A small team of specialists equipped with weapons that could penetrate Zelkan shields, attacking with precision and intelligence. These weren't the primitive soldiers that intelligence had described. These were elite warriors, possibly the best that humanity had to offer. Seal the command center, he ordered. All available security teams converge on the bridge level. Whatever these humans think they can accomplish, they won't reach this position. But even as he gave the orders, Thexvar knew he was fighting an enemy unlike any the hegemony had faced before. The humans had demonstrated technologies that shouldn't exist, tactics that defied conventional military wisdom, and a level of preparation that suggested they had been planning for this encounter, long before the Zelkan fleet arrived. Admiral, Yilkin said quietly, we should consider withdrawing from this system. Regroup, analyze their capabilities, and return with a larger force. Retreat? Thexvar's scales darkened further. The hegemony doesn't retreat from primitive worlds. We are the dominant power in this sector of the galaxy. We don't run from a single planet of upstart aliens. But his confidence was shaken. Reports continued flowing in from across the fleet, and each one painted a picture of a battle that was going badly wrong. The humans weren't just defending themselves, they were winning. Another proximity alarm sounded, and the main display showed a new wave of contacts approaching the fleet. But these weren't the mysterious projectiles that had penetrated their shields. These were spacecraft, sleek and angular, moving with acceleration curves that suggested propulsion systems far more advanced than anything in the Zelkan databases. Human fleet engaging our forces, the tactical officer reported. 37 vessels unknown class. Admiral, they're using some kind of adaptive shielding. Our weapons aren't penetrating their defenses. Thexvar watched in growing horror as the human ships tore through his outer formations like wolves among sheep. Their weapons were unlike anything he had ever seen, seeming to phase through Zelkan shields before delivering devastating impacts to the hulls beyond. Worse, they moved with coordination that suggested a level of tactical sophistication that took centuries to develop. This is impossible, he repeated, but the words felt hollow. The evidence was undeniable. Humanity was not the primitive species they had expected to conquer. They were something far more dangerous. The bridge shuddered as another impact struck the flagship. Emergency reports flooded in from across the ship, and Thexvar realized that his vessel was being systematically disabled by the small team of intruders. They weren't just fighting their way to the bridge, they were destroying critical systems throughout the ship. Power grid compromised, engineering reported. Weapon systems operating at 60% efficiency. Life support stable, but backup systems are failing. How? Thexvar demanded. How are 12 beings causing this much damage? The answer came in the form of an explosion that shook the entire command center. The massive blast doors that protected the bridge had been breached, and through the smoke and debris, Thexvar could see figures in strange armor advancing with weapons drawn. The humans had arrived, and they looked nothing like the primitive creatures that Zelkan intelligence had described. These were warriors, equipped with technology that seemed to blend seamlessly with their natural abilities, moving with a fluid precision that spoke of years of training and countless battles. Surrender, called out the lead figure in accented galactic standard, and your crew might survive what comes next. Thexvar looked around his bridge at the faces of his officers, seeing his own shock and fear reflected in their expressions. In 3,000 years of conquest, the hegemony had never faced an enemy like this. They had seriously underestimated what they thought would be an easy target. Now they were about to learn what happened when you attacked Earth's special forces. Lieutenant Colonel Rodriguez stepped through the smoking breach in the command center doors, his weapon tracking smoothly across the alien bridge. The Zelkan officers stood frozen in shock, their reptilian features displaying emotions that needed no translation. Fear, confusion, and dawning realization that their easy conquest had become a nightmare. Weapons down, Rodriguez commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had faced death so many times it had become routine. Hands where I can see them. Anyone reaches for a control panel and this conversation ends badly. Admiral Thexvar slowly raised his clawed hands, his 4 eyes fixed on the human soldiers who had somehow penetrated the most secure area of his flagship. The armor they wore was unlike anything in hegemony databases, seeming to shift and adapt to the environment around them. Their weapons appeared compact but radiated an energy signature that made his sensitive scales crawl. "You cannot be here," Thexvar said, his translator struggling with the concept. "This is impossible." "Our sensors showed no boarding craft, no insertion vehicles." Sergeant Williams laughed, a sound that seemed to echo strangely in the alien atmosphere. "That's the point of stealth technology, lizard boy. You don't see us coming until we're already here." Rodriguez moved deeper into the command center, studying the alien control systems with professional interest. The technology was clearly advanced, but it followed principles he could understand. More importantly, Corporal Zhang was already at work, her electronic warfare suite interfacing with the Zelkin systems through quantum tunneling protocols that bypassed their security entirely. "Colonel," Zhang reported, "I'm into their primary databases. You're not going to believe what I'm finding here." "Show me," Rodriguez ordered. The main display flickered and changed to show a star map marked with hundreds of worlds. Each one was tagged with Zelkin symbols that translated as conquered, pacified, or integrated. The scope of their empire was staggering, stretching across thousands of light years and encompassing dozens of species. "They've been doing this for millennia," Zhang continued. "Standard operating procedure is to identify primitive worlds, overwhelm them with superior technology, and absorb the population into their workforce. They've never encountered serious resistance." Thexvar's scales shifted to a mottled pattern that Rodriguez's briefings had identified as extreme agitation. "How do you understand our language? How do you interface with our technology? Your species achieved faster than light travel barely 50 rotations ago." "Did we?" Rodriguez asked mildly. "Or is that just what we wanted you to think?" The implications of that statement hit the Zelkin command crew like a physical blow. Commander Yilkin was the first to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. "Deception. This entire system was a trap." "From the beginning," Rodriguez confirmed. "We've been watching your expansion for longer than you might think. We knew eventually you'd come for Earth, so we prepared. Everything you think you know about humanity is carefully crafted misinformation." Private Johnson had taken position near the bridge's tactical station, her enhanced reflexes keeping her weapon trained on 3 different Zelkin officers simultaneously. "Colonel, incoming transmission from Admiral Chen." Rodriguez activated his comm system and Admiral Chen's voice filled the bridge. "Special Forces team, what's your status?" "Bridge secured, Admiral. We have control of their flagship." "Outstanding. I need you to access their fleet coordination systems. We're mopping up their outer formations, but we want their entire command structure intact for interrogation." Zhang looked up from her workstation. "I can do better than that, Admiral. I can turn their own fleet against them." Thexvar's eyes widened in horror. "You wouldn't dare. The Hegemony Council will never negotiate if you destroy our vessels." "Who said anything about negotiating?" Rodriguez asked. "You came here to conquer our world and enslave our people. Did you really think we'd be interested in talking?" But we are a superior civilization," Thexvar protested. "We have brought order and progress to hundreds of worlds. We offer membership in the greatest empire the galaxy has ever known." Williams snorted in derision. "Right, membership, is that what you call slavery now?" Zhang's fingers flew over her interface, quantum protocols allowing her to access Zelkin systems faster than their security could respond. "Colonel, I'm seeing something interesting here. Their empire isn't as stable as they want us to believe. I'm detecting rebellion signatures on at least 40 conquered worlds. Rebellions that they've been suppressing with the same fleet that's currently being destroyed." Rodriguez mused. "Zhang, can you broadcast a message to those worlds? Let them know their oppressors are no longer invincible." "Already working on it," she confirmed. "But Rodriguez, there's something else. Their database contains detailed tactical information on every species they've conquered. We could use this to help those worlds gain their independence." The full scope of what they had stumbled into was becoming clear. This wasn't just about defending Earth anymore. They had captured intelligence that could liberate dozens of worlds and potentially bring down the entire hegemony. "Admiral Chen," Rodriguez called through his comm. "We're looking at something much bigger than a simple invasion fleet. Recommend we take as many of their command vessels intact as possible." "Understood. We're adjusting our tactics accordingly." Thexvar slumped in his command chair, the weight of defeat settling on his shoulders like a physical burden. "How?" he asked. How did you become so advanced without our knowledge? Our intelligence networks span the galaxy. Rodriguez considered how much to reveal. Your intelligence networks work fine against primitive civilizations. But you've never faced an enemy that understood information warfare. We've been feeding you false data for decades, making sure you saw exactly what we wanted you to see. Impossible. The quantum resonance signatures alone would reveal advanced technology. Would they? Corporal Martinez spoke for the first time, his voice carrying an accent that Thexvar's translator couldn't identify. Or would they reveal what we programmed them to show? The implications were staggering. If humanity had mastered quantum deception technology, then everything the hegemony thought they knew about the galaxy could be wrong. How many other primitive worlds were actually advanced civilizations, hiding behind carefully constructed facades? Zhang progress report, Rodriguez ordered. Fleet command systems are compromised. I can redirect their remaining vessels to any coordinates we choose. I've also uploaded a virus into their communication networks that will spread throughout their empire over the next few days. What kind of virus? Zhang's grin was visible through her helmet's faceplate. The kind that broadcasts the truth about what happened here today to every conquered world in their database, along with detailed technical specifications for building the weapons they'll need to free themselves. Thexvar made a sound that might have been despair. The hegemony had maintained control through superior technology, and the belief that resistance was futile. If their subject worlds learned that the Empire could be defeated, if they gained access to advanced weapons. You're destroying everything we built, he whispered. No, Rodriguez corrected. We're freeing everyone you enslaved. There's a difference. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of alien machinery and the soft sounds of Zhang's continued work. Outside the flagship, the battle was winding down as Earth's forces systematically disabled or destroyed the remaining Zelkan vessels. But Rodriguez knew this was just the beginning. Admiral Chen, he called, recommend we prepare for a much larger conflict. When the Hegemony Council learns what happened here, they're going to send everything they have. Let them come. Chen's voice was hard as steel. We'll be ready. Rodriguez looked around the alien bridge at the advanced technology that had conquered hundreds of worlds, now controlled by 12 humans who weren't supposed to exist. Earth Special Forces had just fired the first shot in a galactic war of liberation, and they were going to win. 3 hours after the battle ended, Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the captured Zelkan flagship's interrogation chamber, studying the alien technology with a mixture of professional appreciation and cold determination. The room itself was a work of art, with flowing biomechanical walls that seemed to pulse with their own life. But Chen's attention was focused on the massive holographic display that now showed the true scope of the Zelkan hegemony. 47 star systems under direct control, reported Captain Torres from the intelligence analysis team. Over 200 billion sentient beings held in various forms of servitude. The economic data alone is staggering. They've been strip mining entire worlds for resources to fuel their expansion. Admiral Thexvar sat in a containment field nearby, his scales having shifted to a dull gray that indicated complete defeat. His 4 eyes tracked every movement in the room, but the fight had gone out of him when he realized the full extent of humanity's deception. The rebellion data is even more interesting, Torres continued. At least 60 worlds are in various stages of resistance. They've been coordinating through quantum encrypted networks that the hegemony can't crack. All they needed was proof that their oppressors could be beaten. Chen nodded grimly. And now they have it. Zhang's virus has been spreading through their communication networks for the past few hours. How are the hegemony's subject worlds responding? Like someone lit a fuse, Torres grinned. We're intercepting communications from across their empire. Uprisings, sabotage, direct assaults on hegemony installations. The whole thing is coming apart. Good. Chen turned to address Thexvar directly. Your empire is built on fear and the illusion of invincibility. Take away those foundations and the whole structure collapses. Thexvar finally spoke, his voice hollow with despair. You don't understand what you've done. The hegemony brought order to the galaxy. Without our control, there will be chaos, warfare between species, resource conflicts that could last for centuries. Funny, Chen replied. That's exactly what you said would happen if Earth resisted your conquest. Turns out we're doing just fine managing our own affairs. The irony wasn't lost on anyone in the room. The hegemony had justified their expansion by claiming that primitive species needed their guidance and protection. But Earth had demonstrated that freedom and self-determination were far more powerful motivators than fear and servitude. "Admiral," interrupted Lieutenant Commander Park from the communications station, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command." "Put it through." The holographic display shifted to show General Morrison, Earth's senior military commander, speaking from the Pentagon's Secure Operations Center. His expression was grave but determined. "Admiral Chen, congratulations on your victory, but we've detected multiple faster-than-light signatures throughout the galaxy. The hegemony is mobilizing every asset they have. Intelligence estimates suggest they're preparing a retaliatory force of over 2,000 capital ships." Chen felt a cold knot form in her stomach. Earth's fleet had performed brilliantly against the initial invasion force, but 2,000 ships was a different kind of threat entirely. Even with their technological advantages, they couldn't face odds like that in a direct confrontation. "Estimated time to arrival?" she asked. "Approximately 6 weeks. They're gathering forces from across their empire, which is slowing their response. But when they come, it'll be with everything they have." "Understood. We'll be ready." The transmission ended, leaving the interrogation chamber in tense silence. 6 weeks to prepare for a battle that would determine not just Earth's survival, but the fate of dozens of enslaved worlds across the galaxy. "Admiral," Thexvar said quietly, "you cannot possibly survive what's coming. The force they're assembling could reduce your entire solar system to debris. Surrender now and the Council might show mercy." Chen looked at him with something approaching pity. "You still don't understand, do you? This was never about just defending Earth. This was about something much bigger." She gestured to Captain Torres, who activated a new display showing real-time communications intercepts from across the galaxy. The data streams were chaotic but unmistakably hopeful. Worlds that had been silent for generations were suddenly alive with the chatter of free peoples organizing their own defense. "Your former subjects aren't just rebelling," Chen explained. "They're coordinating. Every world that throws off hegemony control is another ally in the fight. Every hegemony garrison that gets overwhelmed is more equipment and ships for the resistance." "Impossible," Thexvar protested. "Primitive species lack the organizational capacity for galaxy-wide coordination." "There's that word again," Torres laughed. "Primitive. You keep using it, but I don't think it means what you think it means." Chen activated her command console, bringing up a tactical projection that showed the current state of the hegemony. Red zones indicated open rebellion, yellow showed areas of unrest, and green represented worlds still under firm control. The amount of green was shrinking by the hour. "See, the thing about building an empire on fear is that it only works as long as people believe you're invincible," Chen said. "Once that illusion breaks, it breaks everywhere at once. Your subject worlds have been preparing for this moment for generations. They just needed someone to fire the first shot." "But the retaliation fleet," Thexvar insisted. 2,000 ships. "Will have to fight their way through a galaxy in open revolt," Chen finished. "How many of those ships do you think will actually make it to Earth? How many will be destroyed or captured by rebellious worlds along the way?" The alien admiral's eyes widened as he began to understand the true scope of what humanity had set in motion. This wasn't just a defensive action, it was a carefully orchestrated galactic revolution. "Torres, what's our current intelligence on the rebellion coordination networks?" Chen asked. "Better than expected. It turns out several species developed quantum communication technology independently, but kept it hidden from the hegemony. They've been building an underground network for decades, just waiting for the right moment to strike." "And our role in all this?" "Technical support and strategic coordination. We're sharing our weapons technology and tactical expertise with any world that wants to fight for its freedom. In return, they're providing intelligence and resources for the larger campaign." Chen studied the tactical display for a long moment, weighing options and calculating probabilities. 6 weeks wasn't much time, but it might be enough if they played their cards right. "Contact Earth Command," she ordered. "Tell them we're implementing Operation Prometheus." Torres and Park exchanged glances. Operation Prometheus was one of Earth's most classified contingency plans, so secret that only a handful of people knew it existed. It was designed for exactly this situation, a galaxy-wide conflict that would determine the future of human civilization. "Are you sure, Admiral?" Torres asked. "Once we activate Prometheus, there's no going back." "There was no going back the moment we decided to fight," Chen replied. "The hegemony came here expecting to conquer a primitive world. Instead, they found the spark that's going to burn their empire to the ground." She turned back to Thexvar, who was staring at the rebellion display with growing horror. "You wanted to know how we became so advanced without your knowledge," she said. "The answer is simple. We never stopped preparing for this day, while your empire grew fat and complacent from easy victories. We built weapons, trained soldiers, and planned for the war we knew would come eventually. Humanity doesn't just fight to survive," she continued. "We fight to win, and we don't stop fighting until everyone who wants to be free has the chance to choose their own destiny." The implications were staggering, and Thexvar finally understood what his empire was truly facing. This wasn't just about Earth anymore. This was about freedom itself, and humanity had just declared war on tyranny across the entire galaxy. 5 weeks after the initial battle, the Sol system had transformed into the largest military staging area in recorded galactic history. What had once been Earth's quiet backwater corner of space now buzzed with activity from dozens of species, all united by a common cause: the complete destruction of the Zelkan hegemony. Commander Sarah Rodriguez, newly promoted after her brother's Special Forces mission, stood on the bridge of the UES Liberation, humanity's newest and most advanced warship. Around her, the command crew worked with quiet efficiency, their stations displaying tactical information from across the galaxy in real time. "Status report from the Kepler Resistance," announced Lieutenant Kim from the communication station. "The vaccine uprising has captured 3 hegemony supply depots and 2 manufacturing facilities. They're requesting technical specifications for quantum torpedo production." "Send them the specifications," Rodriguez ordered. "What about the Centauri front?" "The Altarian Liberation Fleet reports successful engagement with hegemony forces in the Ross system. Enemy casualties: 14 capital ships destroyed, 6 captured. Allied casualties minimal." Rodriguez nodded with satisfaction. Operation Prometheus was exceeding all projections. The galaxy-wide rebellion wasn't just succeeding, it was accelerating beyond anything Earth strategists had dared hope. Every victory inspired 10 more uprisings, and every liberated world became a staging ground for further operations. "Commander," called out Tactical Officer Martinez, "long-range sensors are detecting the hegemony retaliation fleet. They're approximately 18 hours out from Sol system." Rodriguez studied the tactical display as hundreds of contact icons appeared at the edge of sensor range. The hegemony had assembled a massive force just as intelligence had predicted, but the fleet was smaller than original estimates suggested, and its formation was scattered across several light years. "How many ships?" she asked. "Initial count shows approximately 800 capital vessels," Martinez reported, "significantly fewer than projected. And Commander, they're not moving in standard formation. It looks like they're having to fight their way through resistance forces along their approach route." "Excellent. What's our defensive posture?" "Earth Defense Fleet is at full readiness. 42 ships of the line, including 6 of the new Prometheus-class dreadnoughts, plus allied forces from 17 liberated worlds, another 63 vessels of various classes." Rodriguez smiled grimly. 105 ships against 800 still weren't good odds, but they weren't facing this battle alone. Intelligence reports indicated that hegemony forces throughout the galaxy were being recalled to deal with local rebellions, leaving their retaliation fleet unsupported and increasingly isolated. "Any word from Colonel Rodriguez?" she asked. "Last report from the Special Forces team indicated they were successfully infiltrating hegemony command on Zelka Prime," Kim replied. "No contact for 72 hours, but that's normal for deep infiltration operations." Commander Rodriguez tried not to think about her brother and his team, currently operating behind enemy lines on the hegemony's capital world. Their mission was arguably even more dangerous than defending Earth itself. They were attempting to capture or eliminate the hegemony's ruling council before the retaliation fleet could receive new orders. "Commander?" Martinez interrupted her thoughts. "Incoming transmission from Admiral Chen aboard the flagship." The main display shifted to show Admiral Chen on the bridge of the UES Defiance, Earth's most powerful warship. Behind her, Rodriguez could see crew members from at least 4 different species working together at various stations. "All ships. This is Admiral Chen. Long-range sensors confirm the hegemony fleet is approaching on schedule, but intelligence reports indicate this is no longer just about defending Earth. This is about sending a message to every oppressed world in the galaxy that freedom is possible." Chen paused, her expression becoming even more determined. The enemy fleet has been weakened by constant attacks during their approach. They're demoralized, undersupplied, and fighting for an empire that's collapsing around them. We, on the other hand, are fighting for the future of galactic civilization itself. All ships will engage according to predetermined tactical plans. Remember, we're not just defending our home. We're liberating the galaxy. Chen out. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the liberation in focused silence. Around them, dozens of other ships maneuvered into position, their crews preparing for what would likely be the decisive battle of the galactic war. "Commander," announced the sensor officer, detecting quantum fluctuations at the edge of the system. "The hegemony fleet is beginning to drop out of faster-than-light travel." Rodriguez watched as enemy contacts began appearing on the tactical display. The ships were massive, clearly designed to overwhelm primitive planetary defenses through sheer firepower. But they were also showing signs of battle damage, and their formation was ragged from weeks of fighting through hostile territory. "Analysis confirms 812 enemy vessels," Martinez reported. "But Commander, look at this. Nearly 30% are showing damage indicators. Their shields are running at reduced capacity across the entire fleet." "The rebellion forces have been busy," Rodriguez observed with satisfaction. "What about their command structure?" "That's the interesting part. We're detecting multiple command frequencies, suggesting their fleet coordination has been compromised. It looks like they're operating as separate battle groups rather than a unified force." Rodriguez felt a surge of hope. A coordinated enemy fleet of 800 ships would have been nearly impossible to defeat. But 8 separate battle groups, each operating independently? That was an entirely different tactical situation. "All ships, this is Liberation Actual," she announced over the fleet communications network. "Enemy fleet is showing signs of command structure breakdown. Recommend we implement Tactical Plan Omega, concentrated attacks on individual battle groups to prevent coordination." Acknowledgements flooded in from across the Allied fleet. Ships that had never fought together before were about to demonstrate what happened when free peoples united against tyranny. "Commander," Kim called out urgently, "priority transmission coming in on the Special Forces frequency." Rodriguez's heart leaped. "Put it through." The display flickered and resolved into the face of her brother, Colonel Marcus Rodriguez. He was clearly broadcasting from some kind of hegemony facility, with alien architecture visible in the background. "Sarah, this is Marcus. Mission successful. The Hegemony Council has been eliminated, and we've captured their central command facility on Zelka Prime. We're broadcasting surrender orders to all hegemony forces galaxy-wide." Rodriguez felt a mixture of relief and pride wash over her. Her brother had done the impossible once again. "Marcus, what's the status of the retaliation fleet?" "Already handled. We've transmitted new orders countermanding their attack on Earth. Most of their fleet commanders are confused and requesting clarification. A few are refusing to stand down, but the majority are withdrawing to defensive positions." The tactical display confirmed his words. The approaching hegemony fleet was breaking apart, with many ships changing course or simply stopping in space. Only about 200 vessels continued toward Earth, and even those were moving with obvious reluctance. "Outstanding work, Colonel. What's your situation?" "Secure for now. The local population is celebrating in the streets. Apparently, they've been waiting for someone to overthrow their government for centuries. We're coordinating with resistance leaders to establish a provisional government." Rodriguez grinned at her crew, who were listening to the exchange with obvious jubilation. The war wasn't over yet, but they had just won the most important battle without firing a shot. "All ships," she announced over the fleet network, "stand down from battle stations but maintain readiness. It looks like we won't need to destroy the galaxy to save it after all." The liberation of the galaxy had begun not with massive fleets or superweapons, but with 12 Special Forces soldiers who refused to accept that tyranny was inevitable. Now the impossible had become reality, and freedom was spreading across the stars faster than any fleet could travel. 6 months after the fall of the Zelkan hegemony, Colonel Marcus Rodriguez stood in what had once been the council chamber of the galaxy's most feared empire. The massive chamber had been transformed from a symbol of oppression into something unprecedented in galactic history. The meeting hall of the First Interstellar Democratic Assembly. Representatives from over 200 worlds filled the amphitheater-style seating, their diverse forms creating a tapestry of life that would have been impossible under hegemony rule. Crystalline beings from the Andorian system sat beside the plant-like Verdians, while the aquatic cetaceans had specially designed tanks that allowed them to participate fully in the proceedings. The motion to establish the Galactic Defense Accord passes by unanimous consent, announced President Colmar, a former hegemony slave who now served as the Assembly's first elected leader. All member worlds commit to mutual defense and the principle that no sentient species shall be subject to conquest or enslavement. Rodriguez watched from the observer gallery as cheers erupted throughout the chamber. The diversity of celebration was remarkable. Some species vocalized their joy, others changed color, and a few communicated through complex pheromone releases that the chamber's atmosphere processors translated into visible light patterns. Quite a change from the last time we were here, observed Admiral Chen, who stood beside him in the gallery. She had been instrumental in coordinating the post-war reconstruction efforts, helping former hegemony worlds transition to self-governance. Hard to believe it's the same place. Rodriguez agreed. 6 months ago, this chamber was where they planned the conquest of Earth. Now it's where they're planning the future of galactic civilization. Below them, President Colmar was addressing the Assembly again. Our next order of business concerns the formation of the Rapid Response Fleet. Admiral Chen of Earth, would you please address the Assembly? Chen made her way to the central podium, her presence commanding immediate attention. The story of Earth's resistance had become legendary throughout the galaxy, inspiring countless other worlds to believe that freedom was possible. Honored representatives, Chen began. The Rapid Response Fleet represents our commitment to ensuring that no world ever again faces conquest alone. When the hegemony attacked Earth, we had allies because we had prepared for that day. Now we extend that same protection to every member world. The display screens around the chamber showed the current composition of the fleet. Ships from dozens of different worlds, all unified under a common command structure that emphasized mutual support rather than dominance. The fleet operates on 3 core principles, Chen continued. First, no member world may use the fleet for aggressive action against another species. Second, all member worlds contribute according to their capabilities, not according to their size or power. Third, the fleet command rotates among member worlds every 2 years to prevent any single species from gaining too much influence. Rodriguez smiled as he watched the representatives respond enthusiastically to each principle. The Assembly had learned the lessons of the hegemony's fall. Power concentrated in too few hands inevitably led to corruption and oppression. Admiral, came a voice from behind him. Rodriguez turned to see Thexvar, the former hegemony admiral, who had led the initial attack on Earth. The alien scales had taken on a lighter blue coloration that indicated acceptance and even hope. Admiral Thexvar, Rodriguez acknowledged. The former enemy had become an unexpected ally, using his knowledge of hegemony systems to help coordinate the transition to democratic governance. I wanted to thank you, Thexvar said quietly, for showing mercy to my crew after the battle, for giving us the chance to help rebuild what we had destroyed. Everyone deserves a chance to choose a better path, Rodriguez replied. That's what this whole war was about, giving people the freedom to make their own choices. They watched as the Assembly continued its work, establishing trade agreements that benefited all participants rather than exploiting the weak, creating educational exchange programs that would spread knowledge instead of hoarding it, and planning exploration missions to find new worlds that might need liberation from other oppressive regimes. Colonel, Admiral Chen's voice came through his communicator. Priority message from Earth Command. Rodriguez activated his personal display to receive the transmission. General Morrison appeared, speaking from his office in the Pentagon, but his expression was serious rather than celebratory. Colonel, we've received disturbing intelligence from the outer galactic rim. Long-range sensors have detected what appears to be another empire, possibly even larger than the hegemony was at its peak. They call themselves the Dominion, and they've been expanding in our direction for the past several centuries. Rodriguez felt a familiar chill. Just when the galaxy was finally free, another threat was emerging. ETA to contact? Approximately 5 years, assuming they maintain their current expansion rate. But Colonel, there's something else. The Dominion appears to be enslaving entire species, not just conquering them. Their methods make the hegemony look gentle by comparison. The implications were staggering. The galaxy had just fought a war to establish freedom and self-determination, Now they might face an enemy that was even more ruthless than the one they had defeated. Understood, General. Recommend we brief the Assembly immediately. Agreed. This is exactly why we established the Rapid Response Fleet. It looks like we're going to need it sooner than expected. The transmission ended, leaving Rodriguez deep in thought. Below him, the Assembly continued its work. Representatives from hundreds of worlds planning a future based on cooperation and mutual respect. They had no idea that another storm was approaching, but Rodriguez wasn't discouraged. The galaxy had changed in fundamental ways over the past 6 months. Where once there had been isolated worlds conquered one by one, there was now a unified alliance of free peoples. Where once there had been technological stagnation under hegemony control, there was now rapid innovation as different species shared their knowledge freely. Most importantly, the galaxy had learned that freedom was worth fighting for, and that even the most powerful oppressors could be defeated when free people stood together. Admiral? Rodriguez called to Chen as she returned from addressing the Assembly. Yes, Colonel? We need to brief President Colmar about the Dominion threat, and we should start planning for the next war. Chen nodded grimly. Already on it. But Marcus, this time we won't be starting from a single world. This time we'll have the entire galaxy standing with us from day one. Rodriguez looked out over the Assembly, watching as representatives from hundreds of worlds worked together to build something that had never existed before, a truly free galactic civilization. The Dominion might be more powerful than the hegemony had been, but they would face an enemy unlike anything in their experience. They would face a galaxy united in freedom, and that was a force that had never been defeated. Let them come, Rodriguez said quietly. We'll be ready. Outside the great windows of the council chamber, the stars shone with the light of free worlds, each one a beacon of hope in the darkness. The galaxy had learned to fight for freedom, and no force in the universe could take that away. The age of empires was ending. The age of freedom had begun,